On BBC London News, the family of Jean-Charles de Menezes here. He was the victim of tragic circumstances as the officer in charge gives evidence at his inquest. Also tonight, don't join the force as the Black Police Association calls for a recruitment boycott. We talk to both sides. Tied up with bedsheets, a hospital says sorry after vulnerable patients were restrained by staff.
And the backlash to jargon starts here today. It's not a civic amenity site, it's a dump.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. The Met police officer who was in charge on the day Jean-Charles de Menezes was shot dead today told his inquest she felt terrible about what happened and thinks about it every day. But Deputy Assistant Commissioner Cressida Dick insisted the officers in her command did nothing wrong. Mr de Menezes' mother was at the hearing for the first time and she said she was disappointed and offended by what she heard. June Kelly reports.
It's now 3 years and 3 months since her son was shot dead. With her only other child, Giovanni, Maria Ottone de Menezes has travelled from her home in a remote town in Brazil to attend this inquest. Its aim is to establish the facts surrounding the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes. Today the inquest has heard from Deputy Assistant Commissioner Cressida Dick, seen here at an earlier court hearing. From this control room she was the officer directing operations at Scotland Yard. She began by going through events which led to the fatal shooting of the young Brazilian. She was asked the simple question, what went wrong? Cressida Dick told the inquest, Mr de Menezes was the victim of terrible and extraordinary circumstances. He was extraordinarily unfortunate to live in the same block as Hussein Osman. He was desperately unfortunate to look like Hussein Osman. Osman, on the right, was one of the gang police were hunting for the failed bomb attacks of the 21st of July 2005. She added some of the things Mr de Menezes did in all innocence, the way he behaved, the way he came off the bus, contributed to my assessment of him as a bomber. She said there was also the fact that he entered the same tube station used by 3 of the 21/7 gang. Jean-Charles de Menezes was shot 7 times in the head. It's a tragedy, an awful tragedy, said Cressida Dick. She also told the jury, if you ask me if anybody did anything wrong or unreasonable in the operation, I don't think they did. Later, her voice choking with emotion, she said, from that day to this, I have thought about it every day and wondered what we could have done differently. This was a highly emotional day. Jean-Charles' mother listened to a translation of the evidence. At one point, she was in tears. June Kelly, BBC London News.
Coming up later in the programme.
30 and 40 pounds. So basically that's not good. Can't even pay the rent.
A low point for the high street traders, how the credit crunch is hitting small businesses. In the last half hour, the Home Secretary Jackie Smith has ordered a review of how Black and Asian police officers are recruited across the country. It comes after London's Black Police Association called for people from ethnic minorities not to join the Met. All this on the day Mayor Boris Johnson announced his own inquiry into alleged racism in the capital's police force. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Guy Smith is at Scotland Yard. Guy, is everyone supporting this boycott?
Well, not everyone, Riz, but first let me just remind you of what the BPA, or why the BPA are calling this boycott. They're claiming that racism is allowed to spread across the Met, and if you challenge it then you're suspended or you're told to shut up or your career will be halted. But the National Association of Muslim Police say that they disagree with the boycott. In fact, they're totally against it.
We have grave concerns about a total boycott. We don't think that's a way forward. The Black Police Association have done some really sterling and excellent work, but I think on this occasion we would say to the Black Police Association, let's look at how we can work with the Metropolitan Police Service together and try and increase the number of minorities within the organisation.
Guy, do the Met have a challenge though in restoring confidence among people from black and ethnic minority backgrounds though?
Of course they do. The Met is the biggest employer in London. It has some 50,000 plus officers and staff, so it really does need to reassure those that work for them and also the public that they are actually doing a good job. Now today there was an announcement that there would be an independent inquiry. That should start next month and we should get some results by spring next year, and it will be headed up by Cindy Butts, as a well-respected member or independent member of the police authority. But there could be some resistance because, as I understand, she has sat on a professional standards subcommittee responsible for looking into Tariq Ghafoor, Assistant Commissioner, who's actually been put on gardening leave, and also the suspension of Commander Ali Desai. But we've just heard in the last few moments that the Home Secretary Jackie Smith is also saying that there should be an assessment over the next 2 weeks of progression within the Met and also other forces.
Guy, thank you. Well, in a moment, we'll talk to the Head of Human Resources for the Met, Martin Tiplady. But first, as you can see, Alfred John from the Met's Black Police Association joins me here. Thank you for coming in. Let's just talk straight away about what the Home Secretary has announced in the last half hour. She's ordered an assessment of recruitment and progression of ethnic minorities across the police force. Does that make a difference for the boycott that you were calling?
Well, only in the fact that it took the boycott for that to happen. And I think that's a really significant factor, because we have actually been saying this for a number of years, that things have not moved on in relation to progression of minority staff and the discipline of minority staff.
So are you retracting that boycott after hearing this news?
Absolutely not. We had this during the Morris inquiry. What we want to see, frankly, is food on my plate. I want to see exactly what the review entails, exactly what it's going to look after, what the terms of references are. I don't know whether, in fact, we're allowed to actually have any input into that, but it would be useful if they heard our concerns.
So, Alfred John, you must welcome the inquiry by the Mayor, then, as we heard Guy Smith talking about, headed up by Cindy Butts.
I applaud the Mayor. It's a very brave step to come in and do something like that straight away and do a real roots and branch look at the Metropolitan Police Service, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
So you will cooperate with that review?
Undoubtedly.
Now, do you say that you speak for all ethnic minority officers? Because we heard in that report there, we heard that the National Association of Muslim Police Officers, for example, disagreed on the method of boycotting recruitment.
It's interesting, and Dar Babu there we have a lot of respect for, and he's entitled to his opinion, but the truth is that we've been talking how many reviews. I think no one can argue at the fact that a number of reviews have actually been done into the Metropolitan Police Service, whereby a consistent theme throughout all of them, progression and discipline. We have not moved on.
OK, Alfred John, thank you for joining us. We must leave it there. We can turn now to the Head of Human Resources for the Met, Martin Tiplady, who's at Scotland Yard this evening. Martin Tiplady, what do you tell black and ethnic minority people who are watching this programme tonight? Why should they join the force after hearing what Alfred John has said?
Because it's a great organisation, and we've moved a long way from a number of years ago to attract people into the organisation and to have things in place that enable them to develop their careers with us. I find it a matter of real regret that the BPA have announced this today. I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it reflects the fact that we've come an enormous distance of going up from something like 800 black and minority ethnic officers in London to something around about 2,700 as it is today.
When your figures, sorry for interrupting, but when your figures show that there are clearly more ethnic minority officers than there were 10 years ago, why does there seem to be, do you think, such a strength of feeling that it's still a racist place to work?
Well, I think the view about whether it's a racist place to work, I just simply don't accept. Of course, we are a large organisation, and there will be issues of racism that exist in our organisation, and frankly, come to that any large organisation. The trick is how one actually deals with issues of racism when they arise, what one does with them, how seriousness one gives a response to that. That's actually about an organisation that's wanting to learn, which is where I sit in the Met today. OK, Martin Tiplady from Scotland Yard, many thanks indeed for joining us this evening, and Alfred John, many thank yous. Now, while Boris Johnson officially chairs the Metropolitan Police Authority, it's his vice-chairman, Kit Malthouse, who will have day-to-day responsibility. He was the figure who, alongside Boris Johnson, told Sir Ian Blair it was time to go last week. But questions are being raised about how much he's being paid and how he can do the job full-time. He's also a member of the London Assembly and remains the director of a city investment firm. This from our political editor, Tim Donovan.
I do apologise. We're having trouble getting that report for you, but we'll bring it to you as soon as we can.